All right, let's do a quick explanation of prototypes, constructors, and inheritance, because I've been getting actually a lot of questions on these. All right, what even is a prototype? Well, a prototype is actually just an object like this, and it has properties and methods that things can borrow from, like constructor, and I'll just say magic function, things like that. Okay, so a prototype is just an object just like this. What is a constructor? Well, when you do something like const ARR is equal to an array, internally JavaScript calls the magical constructor to create this. And you might have seen this. This magical constructor for arrays is capital A array. Okay. Now, what is inheritance? Inheritance says since capital A array created this empty array, this empty array is now able to borrow properties and methods up the prototype chain of the constructor, aka the constructor's prototype. That's why an empty array has things like map and filter, but it also borrows up further the chain. That's why you can do things like dot constructor or dot toString, right? Everything has dot constructor and everything has dot toString. But why is that? Well, let's read number one right here. When your file loads, there's this magical thing called the function constructor, capital F function constructor. If you haven't seen my video on that, please check it out. So this thing creates all the built-in constructors that we know, like object.constructor. Is it equal to capital function? Yes. Array.constructor? Yes. About string.constructor? Yes. And it even constructs itself. Function.constructor is equal to itself. Now, why does the engine have capital F function create all the constructors like this? Well, that's because the function constructor's prototype is object.prototype, where all the global properties and methods live. So if you do object dot underscore underscore proto is triple equals to function.prototype, you're going to get true, right? And we can prove this furthermore if we do function.prototype.has own property with things like constructor and toString, and it also says true. Okay. So the point of using the function constructor is because the function constructor's prototype has all of these methods and properties. And since it constructed the object constructor, right, the object constructor also has access to dot constructor. And since the object constructor constructs everything else, that's why everything has dot constructor. Everything has dot toString. Okay, let's talk about types and instances in JavaScript. Well, an instance, like we said, is when you do like ARR is equal to an array, like that. Okay, simple enough. Now, the type of this is array. How many types are there? Well, when you get down to it, there's only one. There's objects. You might hear people say things like, oh, there's actually primitives, and then there's objects. But if you want to get down to the nitty gritty, primitives are just, was it objects anyways, but they use the value of method to provide a real primitive. Let's see. If we do const number is equal to 100, okay? We do const number 2 is equal to new number 100. What's the difference? Well, this, since you created literally with the equal sign, this is not the same as number 2, right? This is type number and this is type object, okay? But if we do number.constructor and we check it with number 2.constructor, you will see that it's actually both created by capital N number constructor. So why is this one different than this one? Well, they're actually not that different. When you create a number literally like this without the new keyword, JavaScript underneath the hood still uses the new number keywords to create this. But then it's going to realize that, oh, hey, this guy wants a true primitive so that he won't accidentally add or remove properties from it, right? Then what it does is that it calls some C++ or C code that's going to prevent the user from adding or removing methods or properties on it. But in the meanwhile, it'll still allow this so-called truly primitive to still inherit properties and methods up the prototype chain. Okay, and all of that is done with the help of C++ code. All right, now if you create it with the new number wrapper, JavaScript is going to say, hey, the user just wants a primitive wrapped in an object. So if we do number dot value of, now all primitives, actually everything has a value of. Value of gives you the true primitive. Okay, so number 2 is an object. So let's do type of number 2 is object. What about type of number 2 dot value of? That's a function, but when we call it, we get the true type, the number. Okay. Same thing with strings. Const str. Let's do a literal string. Literal str dot value of. Does it have a value of? Yes, they all do. Okay. Const str is equal to new string. Let's just do blah blah blah. Str dot value of blah blah blah. Cool, right? So yes, everything in JavaScript is an object, with the exception of primitives, right? Which is kind of an object. You can still borrow methods, but you cannot add or remove methods. Okay, I hope all of this was helpful.